All right, good morning. Welcome to the Null channel and the Null News. For all of you who don't know what this is, it's a time I get to hang out, spend some time with you all, and cover the open source and cloud news that's going on this week. We cover security and then clouds, and then just random open source stuff that I found interesting, or not open source. Some of it's not. And then usually we have some open source projects at the end. All right. Let's start with this. I haven't released a video in like a month, maybe more. My life has been absolutely crazy. With a bunch of stuff from work to my own, like my father was in the hospital for a little. He's doing well, by the way. Doing very well. So that's good. But yeah, was in the hospital for a little while, so there has been quite a bit. Now, that being said, I made a video. I recorded it. I started editing it. It was on compaction. And the worst thing happened to me. It wasn't that I was unhappy with the quality of the video, because that I'm usually unhappy with the quality of my videos. And I've just committed to posting them anyways, because if I'm deciding that they need to be perfect, I never post them. My algorithm for compaction was wrong. It's just wrong. So you can see this here. There's all of this updated code was pushed last night. Okay, and if you're like, wow, this is too long of a function, you're right. It should be broken into other functions, but guess what? It's easier for a YouTube to be like that. I actually had it broken into some functions that did some stuff, and it was more confusing to follow. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to do it this way for the video, because it shows each logical step, which makes sense. And then I don't know if I'm going to just make a video on cleaning up some of these and making some of the tests better, or if we're going to do a live stream of doing that. Because you know that I want to do some live streaming of some of the work that I do around for this channel, in case it's helpful for people. So I'd love your feedback. Would you guys prefer a live stream where we go through and clean this function up, or would you like me to make a video on it? It's kind of up to you guys. But yeah, so that entire video got thrown away. So if you're wondering where my newest videos are, that's where it is. Thrown away because it was wrong. I'm going to update the video, hopefully record it sometime this week, and hopefully post sometime over the weekend about how it went wrong, because it was an interesting mistake. It was kind of an interesting mistake, so. Yep, Papa Null, he's doing okay. He's doing well. I think he learned his lesson about when you're as old as he is, maybe you should stop climbing trees. That might be the moral of the story to take away. So, all right. So probably the biggest piece of news that I saw, you guys probably saw on the security news, things about Twilio, Cloudflare, and a whole bunch of others. So according to this, it's over 130 victims were. It's being Group BI or IB is what they're calling it. That's a massive breach. That's basically looking to steal Okta credentials. So Okta identity credentials, they're kind of like Auth0, except their API sucks more, and I don't know why so many people use them. But they're one of the largest identity providers out there. So this basically, it's pretty bad, and nobody knows the full extent. There's things that, like Twilio said, the breach also compromised Authy. So if you use Authy, this has the potential to have compromised that as well. So this is where the full scope of this breach isn't really known at this point. It's pretty staggering. So basically, this attack looked to steal credentials. So it was a huge, I want to say man in the middle, but that's not what it is. It's a huge phishing attack. It was basically a really massive and coordinated phishing. It was either really coordinated or a really happy accident. That's, I guess, what some people are saying is like it's either that they've been really lucky in their attacks or they've been carefully planned. But yeah, so the full scope is yet to be known. Just what systems have been affected, because things like Okta are used in a lot of different places, and this is actually going back to that supply chain. It doesn't have to be you that use Okta. I don't use Okta. But one of my systems, like Authy, could use Okta and be compromised because of it. Or Twilio. If Authy uses Twilio, you are also compromised. So this is, again, kind of one of those. I know a lot of times we talk about supply chain with like signing your containers and making sure they're up to date and things like that. But this is actually also a supply chain issue because they're used by so many things. So anyways, I'm going to be following this because it's pretty big news, but I don't know of anything other than the stating that Twilio also stated that they might be hurting or might have compromised Authy. Which, if Authy is compromised, how many people are compromised? Probably a lot. All right. Something a little bit more fun. I found this. Sorry, this is on Bleeping Computer. I try to avoid them because of their rampant ads, but they got to be paid. I understand. Lockbit ransomware blames Intrust for DDoS attack on leak site. So Lockbit is a hacker group that hacked Intrust to steal data. Lockbit started to leak the stolen data, and Intrust DDoSed them, DDoSed their leak site. So I found this to be quite funny because it was a lot of back and forth. And it was basically hackers fighting out. This is like the quintessential hacker battle in the streets. If you go down through here, this was the DDoS. This was the delete Intrust. So yeah. Anyways, they weren't subtle about who was DDoSing them. But I found it fantastic. Nobody's going to actually give a leak site, Auth0 isn't going to, Auth0, Cloudflare isn't going to give them DDoS protection and stuff like that because what they're doing is illegal. So yeah, which makes it easy for you to get DDoSed. I thought that this was kind of funny. But yes, Russell, your code and your system, but it's more than your code. Turf Wars, yeah. I found this is fantastic. This like is the Wild West of of software. But yeah, to go back to Russell, I think my point with this Twilio and stuff is it's more than just your code and what your code depends on, but how you access your systems, how you access AWS and all of your systems that provide you your application, that are built on building your application. All of those combined provide your security footprint and what happens. At least, yeah. Anyways, let's talk about air-gapped systems leak data via network card LEDs. This is the real type of hacker stuff that gets you excited. So there was a group of air-gapped systems that leak data via their network cards LEDs. You know the little flashing lights that actually mean something, and when you take your CCNA, you remember that crap, but you don't remember it anymore? That's what I'm in. I don't even know why I ever got my CCNA. Well, I do know why. We can go into that, but all right. So yeah, people were decoding these signals and using them to hack them. So it was interesting. It was a good hack. I liked it. All right. Google found a uncovered tool used by Iranian hackers to steal data from email accounts. It's like such a 2008 Windows XP, like Windows form thing tool. It's pretty fantastic. Okay. Let's see. This one, LastPass developers systems hacked to steal source code. I don't think that this was that big of a deal. So LastPass uses. Okay, it's a big deal because you store your passwords with it. But if they Yes, Russell, but their dependencies doesn't just mean libraries. You're right, and that's my point, and I'm agreeing with you. You have to understand all of your dependencies, not just the library that you use, your Go modules, your whatnot, all of your dependencies, including how you access your systems or how your customers access your systems. If I used Okta and Okta was breached, then I was also breached or could have been breached. So that's the important thing to understand there. To understand your Ethernet frames, yep. Even your CI/CD systems is a dependency. It will fail, and you can't roll out fixes. Yep, absolutely. If your CI/CD goes down, you can't roll out fixes. You can't roll out security patches. If your CI/CD gets compromised, then people could roll out malicious things. So, absolutely. All right, the reason I'm not so concerned about the LastPass, or doesn't have to be, is if they stored everything properly, aka they don't store it without it being encrypted, and they don't have the encryption keys to decode your stuff, then it would be fine. Now, if they were hacked, so their source code, the thing that was stolen, that was the thing that was leaked, shouldn't have encryption keys in it. I mean, that would be appalling as a security company for that to happen. And to my understanding, LastPass doesn't have those things. So this really is not that big of a deal. It was just their source code. They did put out an advisory for it. We can look at that really quickly if you'd like. So you can look at their notice of security incident. And yeah, this kind of confirms what I was saying. No, those things haven't been compromised, so it's not as big of a deal. Yes, you're absolutely correct. Okay, so a couple people are talking about this, and there are a couple things that this does mean. So, when I was saying that it was just the source code, Rubber Cable pointed out it could be used to identify vulnerabilities in code for future attacks. Yes. A lot of people will say obfuscation isn't security, but the fact is, it's not only security. You can make something secure in the open, and you can actually use obfuscation to help hide stuff. It doesn't mean that it's secure because it's obfuscated. That's a horrible assumption to make. But if you're saying that people don't know vulnerabilities that are there because they can't see them, that's a possibly fine thing. That doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means it's harder or could be harder to find. It's not a great thing to hide behind. Like, I wouldn't say that LastPass should. Hopefully, they shouldn't have to worry. Hopefully, it's written in Rust, it's memory safe, and they have really fantastic software engineers, not like myself. We can all breathe again. I don't use LastPass. I memorize all my own. So, anyways, they don't recommend any action at this point. But there was one more critical vulnerability discovered in Atlassian's Bitbucket server and data centers. There is a patch for the CVE. I forget where it is, but they have patched it, and this allowed vulnerability. It got a score of 9.9, which is pretty high on the vulnerability score list. But yeah, so if you do run this and you're running locally, you can run it as a server locally. Go ahead and make sure you patch because that's out there. All right, let's jump into the cloud news. To be honest, this week's cloud news is the most disappointing we've had in months. And I kind of expect it. You know, reInvent is at the end of November, beginning of December, or no, it's not at the beginning of December. It's solidly the end of November, and AWS gets a little more cagey with releasing stuff. They're saving up their big stuff for reInvent. Not that they won't release anything. I just don't think that there will be anything big from now till reInvent. And then the other clouds were also pretty lame. So let's look at it so you can see what I'm talking about. We already talked about the ability to add crash-consistent snapshots of an EBS volumes attached to Amazon EC2 instances. That was last week, and this was pretty cool. If you go down and start looking through this, you know, that's what, August 10th. We're looking at just a few little things like AWS Manager adds support for AWS managed rules for AWS network firewall. Let's see, expansions of regions. AWS announced a new edge location, still expansions, especially for history in AWS Glue. Okay, I guess I don't really know what that is. We'll look at that. I went through these and all of them seemed like expansions or things like that, where it doesn't seem that really that cool. They have a lot of stuff. So yeah, it just exposes metrics for like data collection. Okay, I guess that's cool if you use AWS Glue. I don't, but that's good. So yeah, and we just added more locations. Again, this was a lot of what happened in the last week. In GCP, we announcing the virtual machine threat detection now generally available to cloud customers. So this has been out there. It's now generally available. This is literally all that I found in GCP. Yeah. Now, this is actually a really cool tool. Not to downplay this. This is actually a really cool tool. If you're on GCP, I would actually look into this if you haven't looked into it. Yeah. And then Azure was pretty much just as lame. Azure Data Explorer supports native ingestion from AWS or Amazon S3, and 4 new features in no code editor in Event Hubs. Those were like the main things. We can look at some more of the updates, but again, it was expansions or general availability. So in Azure, when they go generally available, they expand to new regions. So they have more availability zones, you know, some more VMware stuff. Anyways, it's kind of lame. That was it. I didn't see anything else. Did anybody else see anything else in the clouds? Now we have some stuff around Kubernetes. At least one big thing. I was watching the Kubernetes news, and I know that Kubernetes 125 is released. And if you're wondering where our Kubernetes release notes are, I have gone through all of the stuff. I know I'm a little behind. Usually I like to get that out on release date. It's in the work. It should be in the next week because I've done the hard work. I did the late work. I went through all of the release notes. There's actually a few features that I found really interesting. And yeah, so you're going to have that. But outside of that, there's 2 interesting notes on Kubernetes. 2 interesting pieces of news. Why Mercedes-Benz runs on 900 Kubernetes clusters. I wonder if we'll see price increases in cloud subscriptions due to worldwide energy crisis. Possibly. I mean, I think I think undoubtedly, as the world goes into more turmoil with things like Taiwan as well as um, Ukraine, I think very easily you'll start seeing those price creep up, and then you're going to see your online subscriptions for everything that uses those services also creep up. So it's going to get more expensive probably. But let's jump into this. Why Mercedes-Benz runs on 900 Kubernetes clusters. Now, this is not an odd pattern. This is not something unique to Mercedes-Benz. And I think that this is one of the reasons I think I would say Kubernetes fails for me. You know, a lot of people will complain about that Kubernetes is hard for developers. I think that they're doing that wrong. This is the problem that I have with Kubernetes, is you don't want to manage more than one Kubernetes. Why can't we just have one Kubernetes cluster? Yeah, that sounds good. Let's have one Kubernetes cluster. That's my big point. But this is a cool document. If you're unsure of why somebody would have 900 Kubernetes clusters, well, go check out what Mercedes-Benz is doing. There's a lot of reasons why you might have 900 Kubernetes clusters. Like, almost all the cool kids are doing it. So, you know, if you want to be cool, you need to have at least 900 Kubernetes clusters. Even if they only each run one application, that's how you sandbox your applications in Kubernetes clusters, not containers, Kubernetes clusters. It's next level thinking. Let's move on to Cilium 1.12. This is a huge release for Cilium. Now, I'm not sure how comfortable I am with it. Cilium has always been cutting edge and has done unique things with eBPF and things like that. Now, I'm not sure if they've gone a step two. Like, the next thing Cilium's going to do is have a container runtime for you that's not a container. Like, I'm just not quite sure. So Cilium 1.12 adds ingress, adds multi-cluster, adds service mesh, and external workloads. And more, like, and the standard, like, network thing. Like, when has it gone outside of its bounds of do one thing and do one thing well? I always worry when a thing decides to be everything. That always is a concerning thing. It's called OpenStack. We've been there, we've done that game, and it just sometimes ends poorly. Now, I generally really like Cilium, so maybe this is fantastic and solves a lot of our problems. Mercedes needs to make each of their cars an edge node. Now, you say that. I do know for a fact that there are military jets that run Kubernetes in each of their jets. And I believe this is how they deal with redundancy. So basically, there's like 8 or 10 computers in that jet, and it's how they make sure that, you know, the application is running on at least 3 of them so that they have their redundancy and stuff like that. I also know that that happens for some medical things. So, you know, while working on Linux and stuff, I get to be exposed to some of those things. And so, like, there's some medical devices that actually have 3 computers in it, have 3 nodes, and they use Kubernetes to make sure that, you know, they have a very highly available service locally. For better or for worse. A car in every garage, a Kubernetes cluster in every car. This sounds like a end of the world movie. Anyways, so new eBPF or new Cilium. If you're using Cilium, I recommend you check it out. There is a lot of stuff. This is actually probably the cooler thing. So Cilium is powered by Envoy proxy, and they actually exposed this with a new custom resource you can use. That means that you can express your requirements in an Envoy configuration and inject it into your cluster. So they added stuff like topology aware net routing and service affinity. These are the types of things that I 100% think they should. This one at least, probably. Yeah, I don't know. It gets too close to service mesh. I don't know when service mesh stops and when your networking layer starts. So, anyways, like I said, I don't know. Maybe this is the right balance. Maybe they're doing it right. They added layer 7 load balancing. I don't know. It's killing me. It seems like too much. It seems like too much. But it also seems really awesome. It's almost like your one-stop shop. You don't need things like Istio anymore. Your networking provides that for you. You don't need those types of things. So maybe it's really awesome. So we'll see. Anyways, that's out there. And that was my news for Kubernetes. And now we're on to the random news. I know we're burning through this, and so if you like this time, go ahead and recommend stuff in my news section on the Discord. Also, if you've made it this far and can stand my voice, go ahead and hit that like button and make sure you subscribe. All right. Let's jump into the random news. This first piece makes me happy. Good job, Canonical and Ubuntu. Canonical enables, I pronounce this Canonical. I don't know that I'm probably wrong. There's a British person here. Please correct me. Enables Ubuntu on Allwinner's, I don't know how to pronounce that either, but the RISC-V boards. I'm super excited about that. Super excited to get my hands. I'm hoping that this Vision 5.2 open source quad-core board actually gets shipped to me. Because if it does, the null farm, which is soon to be fully functional, is going to have some RISC nodes, which would be fantastic. Well, if I can get Kubernetes to run on them, which is maybe a big if, but I'm going to try. Although that actually now stinks because I'm using... This might be hard. I was going to say, like, Kubernetes does support RISC, or at least cross-compiling for it. And I was going to be like, well, I'll compile it myself. But this actually poses a bigger problem because I'm using another project, Talos OS, for my operating system. So I'll have to see if they cross-compile into RISC. Because if they don't, I won't be able to support that. Not easily, at least. I'm still getting these boards. Well, hopefully. All right. For those of you who are sharper than the rest of us, C# 11 preview is out. Now, they say generic math. I thought all math was generic, but I guess I was wrong. C# is nearing completion, as they say, and it seems like it has some pretty cool things. One of the things that I noticed, and I thought that I had up, but I don't know that I do. Oh, yeah, this here. Was the built-in container support for the .NET. All of this is pretty cool, and I think is pretty fantastic. The other really cool thing is I learned most of what I've never really written C#, but I can actually write C# because one of the things that I learned is the C# is an open compiler. So everything I learned about compilers is really from the C# Roslyn compiler. It's actually pretty cool. That and the Rust toolchain, but it was a huge learning experience for me. So anyways, for that I'm internally grateful for them. Oh, how much are these? Let's see. These Rust are, let's see, they are something like, 1 second. So they're not in USD. So this is about USD. So 1 second. So it's about 46 USD on Kickstarter for the 2 GB one. Yeah. So if you're talking about USD, I think that this is in, I don't know. I'm going to say like Hong Kong or Taiwan. Chinese. Let's see. I don't know what S is. What is S? anyways, it's about $49. Let's see, what is the 8 GB one? I'm going to get the 8 GB. You know what I actually love about these? And what makes it so cool that I could run them in my data center and expose RISC-V to you guys is the 2 Ethernet RJ45 ports. Like, giving that dual reliability is actually really awesome. My hope and goal is to actually expose the null farm out to at least a few of you loyal viewers so that you guys get to play around with bare metal some. And we get to do some stuff together as a community. But yeah, so these seem pretty cool. Singapore dollar? That might be Singapore. Anyways, for the real board that you want, you don't want any of this 2 GB. The 8 GB one is going to be about 64 USD. With a MSRP of $85. That's not bad for a 4-core 8 GB. I mean, if you're talking about Pine, that's almost in line with Pine. Pine's $80. Risk is usually more expensive, so like this is really not bad. If this actually ships and delivers, I'll be very happy. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about this. I need to make videos on Risk. I need to make a lot of videos. I need to figure out a happy medium. I'm not a good animator. And so like I feel like everybody's biggest request from my videos is that I make better animations, which has been stressing me because I've been trying to do animations, but I'm not an animator. And like I just want to make educational content, but then like the reverse side is like if I make educational content that people can't understand because I didn't animate it, then why do it in the first place anyways? So I'm struggling with that, and it does stress me just a little. But I need to make some more videos, and I need to figure out how to make them faster without as much effort on some of the animation stuff. So I've been playing around with a couple things that will help me make animations. One of them lets me make animations as code. I started to write my own framework to write code that animates stuff using Vulkan. We'll see where I land. Hopefully I find something that helps me do that a little bit faster for you all, because I really just want to make videos that help educate people. But we'll see. We'll see. I hope Raspberry Pi releases a RISC-V. I hope like that is something that they do. Actually, I hope that they all go to RISC-V. I honestly think that that's the future, especially for open source platforms. I think that that is easily the future. Yeah, so this is my problem is like I've thought about doing like the hand-drawn like onion skin animation. It takes a lot of time and it looks cartoony. So for me, like, okay, so for example, this upcoming words escape me. This upcoming one on compaction for the database. When you compact, you go through files. And so like one of the animations is like showing the ordering of how you go through files and how the generations of files work and how that's an inverse order. And so like it's laying it out, it's moving those things around and like animating arrows that point around places. I don't know. This is where like I don't know. I'm not great at animating, and I just don't know. I'm sure that there's a simple way to do what I'm wanting if I just knew that it existed. I've been looking at YouTube. I've watched a lot of YouTube on how to animate stuff, and unfortunately, those people go way into depth of how you do like real animate. I don't want real animation. I want cheap, crappy animation. Anyways. Let's talk about the most important thing that has come recently. SSH commit verification now supported on GitHub. GitHub now supports SSH commit verification, so you can sign commits and tags locally using a self-generated SSH key, which will give other confident about the origin of the change you have made. If a commit or tag has an SSH signature that is cryptographically verifiable, GitHub makes the commit or tag verified or partially verified. So just if you want to sign with SSH, you now can. Now, there are a lot of different ways of signing commits. Maybe I should make a video on them. I'm not sure that SSH signing is necessarily the best thing, but it's a good first step. This is a fantastic first step. So definitely look into this. If you're not doing any signing, this is an easy first step because most people use SSH anyways. And so if you're using SSH but think that it's too hard to actually sign your commits using something like a GPG key, well, go ahead and sign it with SSH and do that, because this is good. This is very good. Okay, I should say something more than this is good. This is very good. So this goes to your supply chain hack, especially with remote employees and things like that. You want to know that I'm who I am and that I'm the one that pushed that. So if my GitHub account gets hacked, but not my laptop or my GPG key, I can sign my commit and you know that it's from me. Now, if I make a habit of always signing my commits with my GPG key, and then you see a commit that's not signed with that GPG key or my SSH key, you can assume that somebody stole my GitHub credentials. And now we're safe. That rogue person they have to steal more stuff to impersonate me. Because people are animals of trust, and it's too often that you'll see a pull request from Merrick and you'll assume that I'm not doing something nefarious, because I don't do nefarious things. But that same trust is a double-edged sword, because then you won't look at it for something possibly nefarious because you'd trust that I'm not doing something nefarious. Now, maybe you should always check for that, but we don't have time to always scrutinize everything with that level of detail. So this gives us that safety blanket. So that's why you should use it, not because it's good. I mean, it is good, but that's why it's good. All right. Anyone can sign up for DuckDuckGo's privacy protecting @duck.com email address now. So you can have a forwarding email address to protect your real email address. This is almost like Cloudflare for your email. I wonder if Cloudflare does this. I don't know. They might. They do a lot of stuff. I don't know all of their tools. But anyways, this just protects your email. So if you want to sign up for something with a real email, get that real email to your email, but not give them your real email so you can cancel it at any time from DuckDuckGo. You can. This is actually pretty cool. I hope that they're charging for this and not giving it for free, because they should. Absolutely. All right. This is probably the coolest thing that you are not going to read, but you should read. It has nothing to do with software engineering, but is super cool. Jupyter's evolving, reflecting on Google's data center network transformation. Now, this reflecting is a very key word. They used it purposefully. You should read this. I need to read it again to really understand it. It is about their Jupyter network, their network that they built. And they made this presentation, and you should go watch the presentation. I haven't yet, but I plan to, because the paper the write-up is really good. Evolving Jupyter Data Center Networks. This is how, in 2015, you showed our Jupyter Data Center networks, 30,000 servers with a uniform 40 gigabytes per second, supporting more than 1 petabyte a second of aggregated bandwidth. Today, they support more than 6 petabytes a second of data center bandwidth. That is astounding. That is just astounding. So they have these 3 pillars, and they do it by fiber, but they do it by light, and they do it with mirrors, and it's pretty cool. They have these mirror arrays with with individually controllable micro mirrors. Anyways, I found this incredibly awesome, and it just goes and proves that, as software engineers, we sometimes get so abstracted into this high, I call it layer 8, where you don't, like in the networking layer, you have like the application layer at level 7, and like sometimes we're at level 8 where we don't even realize everything that goes on to provide you this insanely huge data center with this backbone of internet and whatnot. And here we have this mirror with individually controllable mirrors, and they do some really, really cool things with it. You should go read this article because it will give you an appreciation for our data centers and how they do it. So, anyways, go check that out. All right, so I'm going to take Russell on because he's baiting me. I know that he knows he is. All right. So we have 2 commits from him. If Git doesn't flag it, he says that nobody's going to look for it. Guess what you can do? You can actually make it so that your pull request can't be merged if the pull request wasn't created by somebody that was signed. So if you don't sign your commit, you can disable pull requests. If you're really wanting to go all the way out there, you're right. People probably aren't looking for that verification thing. So make that part of your CI/CD. Don't allow it if it doesn't have it. That's easy. As far as the DuckDuckGo, and will Duck email be sent to Outlook online the same way they did the search results that they sent to MS? That is not entirely true. They had some analytics from Microsoft because they had to legally to provide Bing search, and they removed that as soon as their terms of service didn't require it. And those analytics weren't actually stealing what you were searching for. So you should look it up. I did cover this though, so I think that you're just baiting me. All right. Nginx commits to modernizing, optimizing, and extending its open source ecosystem. This is really good. Nginx was bought by F5 a little while ago, and for a while they've kind of halted their open source. F5 isn't known for open source, and the only things that they've really done the only things that they've released after F5 bought them have been closed source and not available to the community. And they haven't really done anything besides their core server that is open source. And so this commitment, and we'll see if it actually comes to fruition, will be really good. Now, I believe that they have some updates planned. I do believe that they have some things that they're planning on releasing, so we'll have to see what those are, and we'll have to see what they're doing. But so far, we're going to have to just wait. So, anyways, and talking about open source and companies committing to open source, this company isn't known for any piece of open source directly. But they have made a commitment to make their changes available to the upstream. So Cloudflare releases a decent amount of open source. I say they're not known for it, but they do have a lot of open source. If you look at it, they have implementations of, HTTP v3 out there that you can go and download. They do have quite a bit. But they also doing this. They're open sourcing their fork of PG Bouncer. It's, I'm going to say, a middleware to Postgres. That's not really true. that's not really true. But they did release their fork, which I think is really, really fantastic. You can go see the original PG Bouncer here, and you can see their fork here, which is cool. They're saying, I don't know if the community wants the things specifically they did to it, and you can read about the things that they did and they found with it and why they did those things. But if you do want them, they're available here. So the community should go check this out. It is in C, which means it's in the most fantastic language out there, not Rust. But yeah, Cloudflare does do a bunch of open source. So here's their quickie. Let's see. Oh, the workers, right? Cloudflare workers in WebAssembly. Wrangler, the CI. Yeah, they're not the best open source. They open source a bunch of stuff that they're that help them sell their stuff. So like fully local simulator for Cloudflare workers. Oh, they do have like Cloudflare, the tunnel client. So they have some good open source. Not big, but I think that they do it well, the balance well, where they do commit to open source. And Borington is another good one. Their WireGuard implementation, a user space WireGuard implementation in Rust. I think they do a good happy medium of supporting the community and while also trying to figure out how to make money. I do believe that they currently still lose money. All right. Let's talk about. You'll have to read their terms of service. All right. So as far as projects go, I don't really have any. I got this brought up to me. Cusk? I don't know how to pronounce that. I feel like that's a curse word in some language. It could be a curse word in English. That's the K word. That's what I'm going with now. Cusk is a curse word. Don't ask me what it means. I have to keep this stream family friendly, so I'm not saying it anymore now that we've defined that it's a curse word. But I can't speak on it yet. I think that I agree with Russell that it's a cool idea. But I have to think on that idea, and I have to think where that leads us on that this is a cool idea. It takes a little bit different approach than some other people are doing. So I don't have a list of open source projects this week. My bad. I worked really hard on that video that I now have to throw away because we have some more because my code sucked. All right. Well, I will let you guys get going for this week. I did work hard on that code. That was a good refactor. And I have a unit test now. Kind of a unit test. It's weird writing tests that have to hit files. That's weird. I don't generally write unit tests that have to deal with files. And I think the real fix is going to do some sort of dependency injection so we don't have to hit just like a in-memory file system or something, so that we don't have to be doing that, because it's really messy. It's really messy. And this is some of the things that I want to work through in my live streams, because I think that would be really cool engineering experience and just getting people understanding the different problems with different solutions and how, when I write microservices, I have none of these problems and I don't have to think about these problems. And so I'm opinionated in a different way when I write microservices because, yeah, microservice, whatever. I'll see you guys next week. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend or week. And I hope you had a fantastic weekend.